All right. Well, with that thought in mind, let's move to a different topic. Let's talk K-12 education or pre-K-12 education, and let's start with you, Representative Moran. What would you like to see come out of this legislative session? What is your thought about what an education bill should look like? Tell our viewers a little bit your views on these issues.
Yeah. So I sit on education finance. I have my degree is in early childhood education. I taught in that field for like 15 years while I was raising my 7 kids myself. So I am a huge champion of early beginnings and great
direct
beginnings.
Experience as well as teaching, right?
Early beginnings and great beginnings is really important. And we know the value of investing early, having kids prepared to go into kindergarten, reading by 3rd grade. And if that happens, that we know that we will really see a great benefit later on in their educational life, and in life in general, because we all know, and I believe, that education is a way out of poverty, right? And so when we have a question here.
No. Go ahead.
So in the age and stage where parents are working 2 jobs, where wages are not livable wage, where, instead of parents leaving their children with a friend or a neighbor, it is really important that they're getting those great educational beginnings. And when I use the word education, I'm using that very loosely because kids and babies learn through play. And anyone who's in that field know that they're learning through their play. So it's not sitting at a table learning, right? So investment in early learning is really, really important to me, that we continue to do that. Universal pre-K is important. I hope that we can see that continue on and expand, making scholarships available for those who are unable to pay for early learning because it's unaffordable. It costs as much as a mortgage costs a month. So any type of relief that we can do for families to make that happen, I think would be great. And it really is about closing the achievement gap. So I definitely want to see that. I like in the governor's budget around education that not only is he not supporting pre-K and 3 to 5, he also see the value in going back to 0, so 0 to 5. And that's important because if anyone knows about brain development, and how the first, I think, 2 to 3 years of life, the brain has developed the most. We know that babies, they absorb everything. They just take in everything they see and hear and do, and they replicate it. So those early years are really very vital. I would like to see within the educational arena more counselors, more social workers, more mental health professionals in our school settings. Teachers are teachers. That is what they are. They're not the social workers or the professionals. So we need more paraprofessionals in our school settings in the day of stage where we have meth, heroin going rapid in the rural community, right? When we have an exhausted the number of people who are homeless. Mental health is at its highest among our young people. I have never understood my daughter would come home from school and say that she is stressed out. And she mean that in the sense that it's just too much, right? And so we need paraprofessionals in the classroom to help support kids as they navigate through our educational system, because they bring all that into the classroom. And then I guess last, I would just say that I would like to also see us create a pathway for more teachers of color in the classroom. And one of the biggest barriers that I hear from teachers of color is that as they go through that curriculum and they have to do their student teaching, often enough it's not a paid student teachers. In these days, when we look at college, these are adults going back to school, right? They have a family already, and they can't really spend 12 weeks, 6 to 12 weeks, doing student teacher, and it's unpaid. So I'd like to see us create that pathway where we're really being intentional and in allowing kids to see a reflection of them in front of the classroom. As one who grew up on the south side of Chicago and many of the teachers looked like me, it made me hopeful that I could be a teacher too. And, relationships are important, and our teachers need help.
Senator
And our kids
Carlson,
need help.
your thoughts?
Well, one of the reasons, again, that I got involved in the legislature was because my career at 3M, I was traveling all over the world, and I saw what different countries were doing, how they were investing in their kids or not investing, or they were culling out the kids that they didn't want to put any money into. Now, we have a melting pot here that we need to admit that we have and that we've welcomed it, and the things are changing. We have changed tremendously from when I was in school. Everybody else, who goes through school thinks that they're an expert. But I think that I've learned a lot from my wife, who has been a teacher for 35 years and just retired, that the kids that are in school are different than they were when I was in school. I was in school long enough to remember when the females in the family would quit before they graduated. The males, they would go into the Army if they couldn't get along in school. Those are the students now that we're trying to keep in school and get them to graduate. We have a pretty high graduation rate in Minnesota, but it is not good in some of the areas where the challenges are greater, where there's a single-parent family, where the parent has to work 2 and 3 jobs just to be able to pay the rent, where there's no grandmother. We all have our families dispersed all over the country now, and we don't have a grandmother that takes the child in and takes that kid and reads to them. And that's, it's different, and I think we need to accommodate it. And I've always felt that the earlier we get somebody into some kind of school or teaching, teaching situation, where I read to my 2-year-old, and our kids read when they were very, very young, because my wife did do a lot of reading to them. We played with them a lot with their blocks that had letters on them and all of that sort of thing. But that's not a model that everybody can afford to handle. And so we need to make sure that we have these kids ready to learn when they go into school, not try to teach them when they're kindergarten or first grade. And I also feel that, and I probably differ a little bit with some of the people that want to do scholarships, because I think that if we're really looking at trying to narrow that gap, we have to go to those outliers. We have to find those kids that have been living in the car. We have to find those kids that otherwise they're not, their family situation does not value education, and they walk into school on the first day of school. I've asked several of the principals in different schools in different parts of the city here, just what do you get as a first day walk-in? And in South St. Paul, there was one school where they get an entire classroom that walks in the first day. In Bloomington, it was 3 students. In Eagan, where my wife taught, there was always somebody that walked in on the first day of school. And those are the kids, and those are the situations that are really hurting both our teachers' ability to help them catch up, and also they may not be even able to catch up. There were kids a few years ago that were coming right as immigrants that had never entered a classroom. And so they had to catch up really fast, and that's one of the reasons why we had all of these special, what do you call them, the categories where they would get categorical aid. So I think that one of my 3M friends once told me, he said, we could not invest too much in education. And 3M is very, very dedicated to investing in their employees, and that's what I took home to be able to work on things, getting the all-day, everyday kindergarten. That's been a rousing success, and I think if we could, we should go lower than that and get the I think free preschool.
Representative Erdahl, K-12 education. You've taught for a year or two. Tell us what your observations are on that topic in this session.
34 years in the 7th grade, so finally got out. Well, first of all, I was gratified to see that the governor in his budget has 2% each of the 2 years, which is what we did last biennium as well. I think at least that's a solid point to look at. But the answer to education isn't all money. I mean, there are a lot of other areas. I've been, over the years, trying to promote the Finnish model of education. They actually have less standardized testing and more of a reliance on ensuring high-quality teachers. We've been fortunate here in Minnesota that we do have great teachers. But as we go farther into the future and we get fewer and fewer people from higher up in graduating classes going into education, we're going to see some downfall in the future. So I've looked at things like in the tax bill that passed, offering tax credits for teachers that get master's degrees in their content areas, because most of our teachers, a very high percentage, do not get master's degrees in what they teach. I think that since we lose 3 out of 5 teachers in the first 5 years of their experience, we need to do a better job supporting them through mentorship programs. In Finland, they have a year-long student teaching program to prepare their students better.
Is it free, or do you have to?
In Finland?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. They don't get paid.
Volunteering? Yeah.
Now, I did propose that in last biennium, it passed as a pilot project in 2 colleges, St. Cloud State and Metropolitan State. So they are doing a pilot year-long student teaching program. I would like to see in Minnesota that we have that as an option for people going into education. We have our 12-week program. If it doesn't work to do the year-long, then stay in that. There have been suggestions of trying to find a way to pay the student teachers, but there's some problems with that, and if it can be resolved, that would be good someday. But what I'm saying generally is I think we need to make sure that we do things that instill a good education in our teachers that we're trying to prepare so that we can maintain a higher level.
Senator Senjum?
Barry, as I alluded earlier, this is my 15th year in the legislature, and probably in year 1 or 2, perhaps well in year 1, you run for the legislature, you get up here, and then you're just encompassed in this educational discussion, and it just seemed to me then, and it seems to me now, that I didn't run for the legislature to be on the school board. I think there are people back home on school boards, in schools, administration, teachers, and so on that can figure this out a lot better than I can.
I agree.
I would just as soon be a legislature that says, we're going to appropriate you money, and you figure out how to make it work. All this categorical funding and so on and so forth, it's again so prescriptive. I just can't imagine. We have so much to do up here, if you haven't noticed. The idea that we would come up with the answers to how to run our schools and how to make kids successful is just almost foreign to me. And I'll just mention, and you were touching on it, but I would go back to some experience that I've been lucky enough to have looking at, if you will, in this case, the German system, the apprenticeship program. I think we don't need to train all our kids to be nuclear physicists because they don't have that aptitude. But let's think about the technical things and so on and so forth, and give them a chance to, if you will, pursue their dreams. And we can do that.
And I'm going to interrupt